عصا سيدنا موسى عليه السلام. The staff or stick of Master Moses, may peace be upon him. قال الله تعالى إخبارا عن سيدنا موسى عليه السلام. Said God, exalted is he, in telling about Master Moses, may peace be upon him. قال هي عصاي أتوكأ عليها وأهش بها على غنمي ولي فيها مآرب أخرى. That's in Surah Taha. I don't have the number here. It means, he said, because he heard the speech of God. Yani, Qala here is, he responded. What was he responding to? He heard the speech of God, and God asked him, what is that in your right hand, O Moses? And of course, God knows what that is in his right hand. So he asked him, what is that in your right hand, O Moses? So Moses answered. He said, Hiya asai. It is my staff. Atawakka'u alayha. I lean upon it. Wa ahushu biha ala ghanami. And I beat the trees with it for my flock. Waliya fiha ma'aribu ukhra. And I have in it other usages. أيد الله تبارك وتعالى الأنبياء الكرام بمعجزات باهرات عظيمات كريمات. Allah تبارك وتعالى supported the noble prophets with noble, great, obvious miracles. Those words don't do really what's their justice. وَمِنْهَا مَا أَيَّدَ بِهِ سَيِّدِنَا مُوسَى عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. Amongst them is that by which he supported Master Moses, may peace be upon him. وَهِيَ عَصَاهُ الْعَجِيبَةِ. And that was his amazing staff. وَرَدَ فِي أَخْبَارِ هَذِهِ الْعَصَى. It was reported about there came some reports concerning this stick. التي هي آية باهرة. This stick, which is itself, it is an amazing sign, an outstanding sign. Yani, I don't want to say incredible, as if incredible means unbelievable. أنها تحولت بين يدي سيدنا موسى عليه السلام إلى حية حقيقية. Amongst those reports is that this staff transformed in the hands of Moses or in front of him, بين يدي, in front of Moses. I don't know that it transformed while it's still in his hands literally in any of the story. He always, as far as I know the story, he always threw the staff and then it would transform. بين يدي سيدنا موسى عليه السلام. Before Master Moses, it was a sign because it transformed. Before Master Moses, may peace be upon him, إلى حية حقيقية, into a real serpent. Tamshi bi'idhnillah, moving about by God's permission. It was said that it sprouted legs. I don't know if that's the case. Every time it transformed, it sprouted legs. At least one time when it transformed, sprouted legs. Tamshi bi'idhnillah, moving about by the will of Allah. وَتَبْتَلِعُ الْحِبَالَ الَّتِي أَوْهَمَ سَحَرَةُ فِرْعَوْنَ لَعَنَهُ اللَّهُ الْحَاضِرِينَ أَنَّهَا ثَعَابِينَ. And this serpent devoured the ropes that Pharaoh's wizards gave, by which the Pharaoh's wizards gave the people the impression that they were snakes. So, as you know, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, first he got the revelation when he came back from Midian. He came back from Midian on his way to Egypt. So there's whole story before that too. How he got to Midian. So there's whole story there. On his way from Midian to Egypt, and he was with his family and his flock, and it was raining. And then he thought he perceived a fire. So he told his family to stay put, and he went to go see if he could get some fire or get some news, and they were lost. So that's when God spoke to Moses. So he received revelation for sure at this point. There's a saying that he was already a prophet. And here for sure he received revelation. And God spoke to him. And God showed him how to do the miracle of the staff, which is in the ayah that we started with. What is that in your right hand, O Musa? He said, it is my staff. I use it for this and this and this. And then right after that, Allah commands him, toss it, Moses. So he tossed it, and then it transformed right before his eyes. إلى حية حقيقية تمشي بإذن الله وتبتلع الحبال التي يأوها السحرة. Yes. So that's when he first got the revelation. Then that's when Allah commanded him to go to the Pharaoh and to call the Pharaoh to Islam. And it was then that Moses prayed for his brother to be made a prophet also, Aaron, and that Aaron would be his assistant. And Allah did make Aaron a prophet. And he commanded Moses to meet Aaron, and the two of them went to the Pharaoh together. They went to the Pharaoh's, wherever he was, in his hall, or wherever he was. And there, he tossed the staff, so it transformed again, right in front of the Pharaoh and all his people. So that's when they deemed him a grand wizard, and then challenged him. And he accepted the challenge. So they did the challenge on a day that was what they considered a holiday. The Pharaoh had collected wizards, the best wizards in the land. Yeah, the strongest. It means, best here means strongest. Not good. Yani, I didn't mean good. I don't mean to imply that it's good at all. So the strongest wizards, he got them, and they unified their efforts, and they were a team. All of them were a team against Moses. They agreed to that. And so they did, قد يقال, an incredible feat in magic, something very bewildering, strong magic, and gave the people the impression that their sticks and their ropes were snakes. And they rushed to say, we won, before Musa even did anything. And then he threw his staff, and it transformed into a serpent. Here, sprouted legs. And it was very large. And also, when he threw it the first time, became very large. And very fast, very scary. And it swallowed all their sticks and all their ropes. So that's what this is about here. So it says, among the news that came about this stick, this stick, which is such an amazing sign, is that it transformed before Master Moses, may peace be upon him, into a real serpent moving about by God's permission and swallowing the ropes that the Pharaoh's magicians gave the audience the impression about them that they were snakes. So that's only one instance when the snake transformed, what's mentioned here. And you just got the other two that I know. So when he first learned how to do it, and then when he went to the Pharaoh. And then it was after that that he defeated them in this challenge. وقيل إن هذه العصا هبط بها سيدنا آدم من الجنة. And it was said about this staff, you could translate it as stick. Our master Adam descended with this stick from the garden. وبقيت في الأرض, and it remained on earth. إلى أن سلمها سيدنا جبريل إلى سيدنا موسى عليه السلام, until Master Gabriel, the angel, gave it to Master Moses, may peace be upon him. And it was said that he got that stick from Shu'aib in Midian. وَكَانَ يَتَوَكَّأُ عَلَيْهَا, and he used to lean upon this staff. أي يستعين بها في المشي والوقوف, meaning he used to use this staff when he would walk and when he would stand. ويخبط بها على أغصان الشجر, and with it he would beat the branches of the trees. ليسقط ورقها, so that its leaves would fall. فيسهل على غنمه تناولها, and then it would be easy for his flock to eat those leaves. فتأكلها, so then they would eat them. وإذا هجم سبع أو عدو, and if some beast, some predator would attack, or an enemy, فإنها كانت تقاتله وتحاربه وتبعده عنهم وعنه عليه السلام. This stick would fight it off and make it retreat, back it up, away from the flock and away from Moses, may peace be upon him. Here, Sabur with a dhamma on the bat, that's a predator, and it could be a scavenger. Just drawing your attention to that because you see the letters Sin, Ba, Ain. So that's not Saba with sukoon on the bat, which means 7, number 7. The Sabur. وَإِذَا بِتَعَدَتْ بَعْضُ الْغَنَمَاتِ, and if any of his flock would stray عن القطيع, away from the flock, أعادتهم إليه بإذن الله, that stick would make them come back to the flock by God's permission. وكان طولها 10 أذرع, and its length was 10 cubits. So that's for us quite tall, 10 cubits. 7 cubits is 10 feet, so it's 10 cubits. وَمِن مَنَافِعِهَا الْعَجِيبَةِ, and amongst its unusual benefits, أنها كانت تماشي وتحادث سيدنا موسى عليه السلام في طريقه وتجوله في طريقه وتجوله, is that it used to converse with Master Moses, may peace be upon him, on his way, and when he was going around. وكان لها رأسان متشعبان منها, And this staff had two heads that were diverged away from the center. Yani, it forks. This staff of Moses forked. يعلق عليها أحماله من قوس وسهام. He used to hang upon it his load, such as a bow and arrows. ثم عندما يدخل الليل كان رأس العصا يضيئان كالشمع. And then, when the night would come in, the two heads of the staff would illuminate like a candle. وكان إذا أراد أن يشرب من بئر تطول العصا بطول البئر. And when he wanted to drink from a well, the stick would extend to the length of the well. مهما كان عميقا, regardless of how deep it was. ويتحول رأسها إلى ما يشبه الدلو. And then its two heads would transform into what resembles a bucket, or turn into what resembles a bucket. فَيَمْلَأُهُ وَيَشْرَبُ مِنْهُ. So then he would fill it and drink from it. وَأَمَّا إِذَا عَطِشَ فِي صَحْرَاء لَيْسَ فِيهَا بِئْرٌ. Now, as for if he became thirsty in the, I'm going to say desert, Sahra. I want to look up this word, Sahra. Not now though. So for now, I'm going to say if he got thirsty in the desert, لَيْسَ فِيهَا بِئْرٌ, where there's no well. What's the well? The well is what's meant here is the self-replenishing source of water in the ground, down in the ground. So you dig down into the ground until you tap into the water. That's a bi'r. And if there's a place where the water erupts out of the ground, that's ayn, that's spring. So if he were thirsty in the desert where there wasn't a well, so we're not talking about a man-made well here. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ مَعَهُ مَاءٌ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ مَعَهُ مَاءٌ, and he didn't have any water. غَرَزَهَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, he would implant the staff into the ground. فَتُنْبِعُ مَاءً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, and then water would sprout from it by God's permission. فَإِذَا رَفَعَهَا عَنِ الْأَرْضِ نَضَبَ الْمَاءِ, and then if he were to pull it out of the ground, the water would stop. وَكَانَ إِذَا اشْتَدَّ عَلَيْهِ الْحَرُّ يُرَكِّزُهَا فَتَطُولُ شُعْبَتَهَا, and if the heat would become intense, he would implant it into the ground, and then its two heads would expand. ثُمَّ يُلْقِي عَلَيْهَا كِسَاءَهُ وَيَسْتَظِلُّ تَحْتَهُ, or extend. Then its two heads would extend, and then he would throw his cloth upon it, and he would take shade in this way. وَإِذَا اشْتَهَى ثَمَرَةً كَانَ يُرَكِّزُهَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, and if he desired a fruit, he would implant his staff into the ground. فَتُورِقُ وَتُثْمِرُ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, and then this staff would sprout leaves and then sprout fruits by God's permission. فَيَأْكُلُ مِنْهَا مَا طَابَ, and then Moses would eat from it whatever he liked. وَكَانَتْ تَدْفَعُ عَنْهُ حَشَرَاتِ الْأَرْضِ وَهَوَامَهَا, and this stick used to fend off from Moses the vermin of the earth and the harmful critters. وَهِيَ حَيَوَانَاتٌ تُؤْذِي كَالْعَقَارِبِ, that refers to the animals, the harmful animals like the scorpion. وأول مرة تحولت هذه العصا إلى ثعبان. And the very first time this staff transformed into a serpent, كان لها عرف. It had a mane. كعرف الفرس, like a horse mane. So that's very strange. A serpent with a mane down his back. وكان متسع فمها 40 ذراعا. And its mouth was 40 cubits wide, so that means very large. وابتلعت كل ما مرت به من الصخور والأشجار. And it would devour anything it passed by, whether boulders or trees. حتى سمع سيدنا موسى لها صرير الحجر. صرير الحجر في فمها وجوفها. صرير الحجر صرير الحجر صرير الحجر في فمها وجوفها. To the extent that Master Moses would hear the crunching of the stones in its mouth and in its belly. وأوحى الله تعالى إليه أن يدخل يده فيها. And God, exalted as He, commanded Moses to put his hand in this serpent's mouth. تقوية لقلبه, to strengthen his heart. وأنها معجزة له, and that this is a miracle of his. ولن تضره, and that it will not harm him. فأدخل موسى يده في فمها بين أسنانها. And so Moses put his hand in its mouth between its teeth. فعادت خشبة كما كانت. And then it turned back into wood as it was. Meaning, what he would do if he wanted it to transform is he would throw it, then we'll transform. And then if he was finished with that need of his, he would put his hand on it and it will turn into a stick again in his hand. I mentioned for you maybe in another lesson that what's mentioned in the tafsir of An-Nasafi, he posed the question, this serpent, if it is so many times larger than the staff itself, then when it turns back into a staff, what becomes of the extra particles that would be needed to increase its size? So he said, it could be that Allah simply makes those extra particles, those extra atoms, vanish into nothingness as it shrinks back down to size. Or it could be that Allah makes the extra particles disintegrate away from the stick so that they separate from this thing like ashes as it turns back into a stick. وَهَذَا لَيْسَ سِحْرًا, and this is not magic. لِأَنَّ السِّحْرَ يُفْعَلُ مِثْلُهُ, because magic because some feat of magic can be challenged with a similar one. وَقَدْ يَأْتِي شَخْصٌ بِسِحْرٍ فَيَأْتِيهِ مَنْ يُعَارِضُهُ بِسِحْرٍ أَقْوَى. And perhaps some person could perform some magic and then another one comes and opposes him with stronger magic, because the magicians compete with each other. And the magicians, they like the fame. وَلَا يُفْلِحُ سَاحِرٌ حَيْثُ أَتَى, as mentioned in the Quran, and the magician will not be successful wherever he goes. أَمَّا هَذَا الْأَمْرُ, as for this issue, فَهُوَ مُعْجِزَةٌ, this is a miracle, min mu'jizati al-anbiya, amongst the miracles of the prophets, not magic. Magic is something else. وَمِنْ أَكْبَرِ مُعْجِزَاتِ سَيِّدِنَا مُوسَى عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامُ بِهَذِهِ الْعَصَى. And amongst the greatest miracles of Master Moses, may peace be upon him, by this staff. هذه بهذه العصا. So then that's a proof for you. The word asa is feminine. بهذه العصا. It's feminine without a sign of femininity. أنه عندما خرج هو والمسلمون المؤمنون الذين هم من ذرية إسرائيل وهو يعقوب عليه السلام كانوا في أرض مصر, which was that when he and the believing Muslims with him made the exodus, yani the believing Muslims who were with him from the progeny of Israel, who is Jacob. Israel is Jacob. May peace be upon him. They were in Egypt. التي كان يحكمها فرعون. Egypt that was ruled by Pharaoh. وتبعهم فرعون بجيشه الكبير. And then Pharaoh chased them with his big army. Meaning, so to remind you, how did even the children of Israel get in Egypt? Because Joseph was taken to Egypt when he was thrown in the well by his brothers. And then Joseph came into power in Egypt. And then he had all his family come to Egypt. So that's how the children of Israel, they are the children of Israel, his direct sons. Israel is Jacob. The sons of Jacob came to Israel, came to Egypt. Yani Israel originally is a man. So then they settled there. And then they increased there. And then there came, while they were there, a Pharaoh came in power. And then he oppressed them. And he enslaved them. So then Allah sent Moses. And Moses called the Pharaoh to Islam and called their people to Islam. And then there came a time when they were going to leave Egypt. This is what they call the Exodus. Which is that Moses alayhi salam, he prepared the children of Israel. And then one night, they all left. Everybody left. They all agreed they're going to go. So they were all leaving. So all these people, all those Israelites who are Muslims, they're all leaving Egypt, going towards the sea. It's organized by Moses alayhi salatu wassalam. So وَتَبِعَهُمْ فِرْعَوْنُ بِجَيْشِهِ الْكَبِيرِ. And then the Pharaoh followed them with his great army. That's after the Pharaoh caught wind of that they're trying to escape. وَلَمَّا وَصَلَ سَيِّدُنَا مُوسَى إِلَى شَاطِئِ الْبَحْرِ. And when Master Moses reached the seashore, أَوْحَى اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ أَنْ يَضْرِبَ الْبَحْرَ بِعَصَاهِ. God commanded him to hit the sea with his staff. فَضَرَبَهُ. So he struck it. فَانْفَلَقَ الْبَحْرُ 12 فِرْقًا. Then the sea split into not one but 12 pathways. 12 pathways. Yani, this is enormous miracle here. Even his serpent, his staff transforming into a serpent is much greater miracle than what some other people say. The way they relate the story. Like a stick just turned to a cobra, for example, is just wiggling there. That's it. So he hit the sea with his staff and it split into 12 pathways. فَكَانَ كُلُّ فِرْقٍ كَالْجَبَلِ الْعَظِيمِ. between one pathway and the other pathway was a mountain of water, an enormous mountain of water. That means this water is just standing there without anything to hold it up. It's just standing up on its own by God's power. وَصَارَ مَا بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ أَرْضًا يَابِسَةً. And what's between one mountain and the other mountain is just dry land. Here, yabisa. So that means the word ard also is feminine without a sign of femininity. فَجِتَازَ مُوسَى وَمَن مَّعَهُ الْبَحْرُ. And so Moses and who was with him crossed the sea. And subhanallah, they were so afraid too at first, because they reached the sea and it looks like it was just a dead end. So they were all just there and they were very scared. And by the time they all got there, the Pharaoh had already been on his way with his army. And while they were there, and it looks like it's a dead end, they see the army of the Pharaoh. So they said, "Inna lamudrakun." We're caught. Musa said, "Kalla inna ma'iya rabbi sayahdin." Definitely not. Indeed, my Lord supports me. He shall guide me. So then that's when Allah commanded Moses to hit this sea with his staff. So he hit it, and then they started crossing. When they saw the sea split, they were so happy. Then they started spilling in those pathways, 12 pathways, a lot of people. This is not one line here. وَكَانُوا سِتَّمِئَةِ أَلْفٍ. They were 600,000. وَكَانُوا سِتَّمِئَةِ أَلْفٍ. They were 600,000 people. فَلَمَّا شَعَرَ بِذَلِكَ فِرْعَوْنَ. فَلَمَّا شَعَرَ بِذَلِكَ فِرْعَوْنَ. So then when Pharaoh realized that, so the way it's worded here, skipping around just a little bit, because here it says, فَلَمَّا شَعَرَ بِذَلِكَ فِرْعَوْنَ. So when Pharaoh realized that, وَكَانَ مُنْشَغِلًا بِعِيدٍ لَهُ وَلِقَوْمِهِ. And he was busy celebrating what was a holiday for him and his people. فَسَارَ لِيُدْرِكَ مُوسَى. He immediately mobilized his army to go catch Moses. وَمَعَهُ مِلْيُونَ وَسِتُّمِئَةِ أَلْفِ مُقَاتِلٍ. He had 1,000,000, that's 1,000 thousands. He had 1,600,000 fighters. Yani, what was their goal too? Their goal was complete genocide. They were going to wipe those Israelites out. حتى وصل إلى الشاطئ. So he went with his army until he got to the seashore too. So just when he got close enough, that's when Allah commanded Moses to hit the sea with his staff. So he did so that the children of Israel can cross and get away safely. وَمَا إِنْ خَرَجَ مُوسَى وَقَوْمُهُ نَاجِينَ بِعَوْنِ اللَّهِ حَتَّى عَادَ الْبَحْرُ. And as soon, this way it's worded here, and as soon as Moses and his people came out from the other side safe by God's help, حَتَّى عَادَ الْبَحْرُ, the sea came back. وَأَطْبَقَ عَلَى فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَن مَّعَهُ. And it closed in on Pharaoh and whoever was with him. So really there's some details there, which is that Moses and his people, the sea was opened for them at just the right time. In God's knowledge, he knew, now split the sea. So he split the sea. So they started to move as the Pharaoh was coming for them. Then the Pharaoh came with his army. By the time he got to the seashore, they came out from the other side. So the Pharaoh was on the other side, and the Pharaoh was on one side, they were on the other side, and the sea was still open. So the way it's worded here, it says, as soon as they got on the other side, the sea closed in on Pharaoh. So just saying it like that means there's a summary going on here. Because how Pharaoh got in there, the way this is worded means Pharaoh must have gotten in there. So that's how you summarize in Arabic. So they got out from the other side. The sea was still open. And then Pharaoh and his army went in while the sea was open. And it was said that they came out from the other side before Pharaoh and his army went in. And Moses wanted to hit the sea again, so to make it close. The way for him to make it close was to hit it again. So he was gonna, when he came out, he was going to hit the sea again, and Allah revealed to him, wait. So he didn't. He delayed hitting it. And then Pharaoh went in there, and then when they got in there, then Allah revealed to him, now hit it. And then he hit the sea with his staff. Then it closed in on them. They saw the waves. Yani the mountains, what? They just let go and they saw the waves coming. Swept them right up. Swept them up and then they started drowning. وَأَطْبَقَ عَلَى فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَنْ مَعَهُ. And it closed in on Pharaoh and those who were with him. فَغَرِقُوا وَسَطَ الْأَمْوَاجِ الْعَالِيَةِ. And they drowned in the midst of high waves. There's something here. It says here, خرج هو والمسلمون المؤمنون. He, Moses, and the believing Muslims, they made an exodus. This statement doesn't mean that not a single kafir was amongst them. And it also doesn't mean not a single person who's not from the Israelites tagged along also. Could be that someone who's kafir tagged along with them, and someone who's not from the Israelite tribes tagged along with them too. Wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Any question?